Today, I will expound on the core of the Dhamma, which is the essence of the Buddha's teaching, the path to liberation from suffering and the cycle of birth and death, samsara. This is something that each of us must come to fully understand. We must not let time pass by in vain, for our lives are uncertain. Once we set our goal that we will be free from suffering in this lifetime and that we will never again be trapped in the cycle of samsara, this life will be our last birth. Once we establish this firm determination, we must strive to understand the essence of the Buddha's teachings. The core of these teachings is the realization of permanent liberation from suffering, never to return to the cycle of birth and death again. This understanding and commitment are the key to our final freedom from samsara. The essence of the Buddha's teaching is the mind itself. Our mind is clouded by ignorance known as avidya. Because of this ignorance, our mind is composed of ignorance, or not knowing. When it does not know, it flows with the mental states, which is called the mind flowing with mental formations. When the mind flows with these mental formations and fabrications, it uses them as tools, relying on thoughts, mental images, emotions, and perceptions. These serve as instruments for fabricating and learning from what it encounters. Through these, the mind shapes its understanding of the world. When the mind, which is originally pure, becomes clouded by ignorance or not knowing, avidya, it begins to rely on tools such as mental formations. The mind attaches itself to these tools and becomes immersed in them, continuously clinging to them. When this mind enters the body, whether in humans, animals, or even subtle forms, it begins to engage with the world through the process of mental formations, learning and experiencing things. As it continues to rely on this process, it becomes familiar with and accustomed to these mental formations. The mind has continuously relied on these mental formations to the point where it forgets that they are meant solely for learning from the experiences that arise. It forgets that these experiences have no inherent self, that they are not me or mine. This is the true purpose. However, because we have not yet encountered supreme teachers such as the Buddha, all of our minds have relied on mental fabrication to learn and assign values to things. This fabrication is abstract, nama dhamma, and through this abstraction, we assign values to both the abstract and the material, rupa dhamma. We depend on thought itself, using thought to assign values. These thoughts then assign values to whatever impacts the mind. We assign value by considering the mind as the knower, presuming that I know, we know. We label emotions as happiness, suffering, satisfaction, dissatisfaction, anger, vengeance, ill will, joy, rapture, contentment, and peace. We assign conventional language to these emotions, even though they are merely neutral phenomena without any inherent language of their own. However, it is thought, through mental formations, that assigns value to these states. It gives value to assigning value to something that cannot be expressed in words, labeling them as emotions of joy or suffering. It assigns labels to mental images, creating concepts such as being, person, self, or identity, all of which are merely conventional designations. When the mind assigns value to abstract concepts, it also assigns value to physical forms. It labels what is perceived through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body. It says, "This is our body, these are our arms, legs, and hands," even though the body is simply a natural phenomenon, merely an object of perception. But having relied on this tool of mental fabrication, we use this very tool to assign values. When we assign value to this body, seeing it as the 32 parts, we then attribute ownership to these things, claiming, "This is our body." We assign value to having parents, children, grandchildren, friends, houses, cars, and possessions. We further fabricate by categorizing things as good or evil, right or wrong, wholesome or unwholesome. We assign values to everything, even beyond this world and universe. labeling things as earth, water, wind, fire, space, and worlds. This is the complete conventional reality that has emerged with ignorance, not knowing, as its root cause. The mind, caught in ignorance, doesn't realize that all the things it perceives and labels, everything that changes and fluctuates, are not inherently what it believes them to be. Because of its ignorance, the mind creates mental formations, thoughts, emotions, and attachments, assigning value to everything it encounters. When we are born and take residence in the body, the mind begins to learn and assign value to things. After birth, the baby comes into contact with the outside world. Upon emerging from the womb, it cries, reacting emotionally to what it likes or dislikes. At first, the mind reacts emotionally, smiling when it likes something, crying when it dislikes something. As the baby grows, it begins to open its eyes and perceive the world. It becomes familiar with what it sees, hears, smells, tastes, and feels. The mind starts to record and process these perceptions, remembering images, sounds, smells, tastes, and sensations. It begins to understand what these things are, categorizing them based on whether it likes or dislikes them. Not long after, we began to learn the sounds around us. Parents started teaching us to speak by repeating the same words over and over, mum's child, dad's child, and showing expressions to make us recognize that we are their child. We then began to remember that this expression is called child. The word child represents this expression, mother represents this image, father represents this image, and love represents this feeling. We started to learn and assign value to things we encountered. When a sound reached us, we learned to assign meaning to that sound, understanding what it signified, and began recording, processing, remembering, and clinging to it. Once we could speak, we were taught to identify and hold on to meanings. This is our arm, this is our leg. We believed and started assigning value and clinging to the meaning that these are our arms, our legs, and our body. This is our father, this is our mother, this is our home. This is dirty, this is clean, this is good, this is not good. At first, we did not know what good or bad meant and asked our parents, what is good? What is bad? What is sin? What is merit? What is wholesome? Because we did not understand the language or what it represented, our parents began teaching us to fabricate these meanings permanently and to cling to them, labeling them with conventional terms. This is called merit. This is called sin. The mind continues to accumulate these labels and values. It learns that this is a house, this is a cat, this is an animal, and so on. The child starts to wonder why something is called a cat and why it's also called an animal. It begins to question and understand the difference between labels and the objects they represent. The mind continues to use thoughts, emotions, and mental formations to assign value to everything. This is the continuous process of assigning value, relying on tools continuously. Initially, our mind was pure by nature, but due to ignorance, not knowing, the mind created a tool called mental formations, thoughts, and emotions. This is the initial stage of sending the mind outward. When the mind sends its current to sustain and use mental formations as tools for learning, this is already sending the mind outward. At this point, the mental formations assign value to themselves, perceiving the mind as the knower, believing, I am the knower, I am aware. It continues to assign value, recognizing emotions as having certain names and qualities, happiness or suffering in specific ways. Mental images are what we envision, giving value as personal identity, with names and labels arising as mere conventions. Thought assigns value to itself, attributing significance to physical forms and everything in the world. It assigns the idea of beings, individuals, identities, us and them, to the four elements, earth, water, wind, and fire, continuously assigning value to everything. When we comprehensively assign value to all things, it is called the mental phenomena, assigning value to the physical phenomena completely. This is the complete outward projection of the mind. Initially, the mind depends on mental formations, which then continue to assign value. This is the second step, where the mental formations assign further value, recognizing this is my body. In step 3, once there is an identification with the body as mine, we must create things for it to rely on, building a house for the body to dwell in, finding food for it, clothing it, and seeking medicine to sustain it, seeking the necessary resources for the body. This is the characteristic of relying on external factors entirely. This is the outward projection of the mind, the birth of the mind, and the cycle of suffering, samsara. When the mind is composed of avidya, ignorance, which is the root cause, it is simply because it does not know. It only seeks to learn, but it never truly learns the nature of things, that all of what it perceives is anatta, non-self, without any inherent existence. These perceptions arise because the mental formations, thoughts, emotions, or mental phenomena, assign value to them. When value is assigned, they come into being. Assigning value as this is an arm leads to believing that this is an arm, feeling as if there is an arm. Assigning value as this is my body leads to the belief that this is my body, bringing the concept of the body into existence. Assigning value to this is an emotion of happiness or this is an emotion of suffering brings about the experience of happiness and suffering. The mind then experiences and clings to these emotions, leading to rebirth in favorable or unfavorable states. After this body disintegrates, the consciousness continues to experience these emotions in more subtle realms. When its lifespan in that realm ends, it returns to take a new vessel and begins learning, fabricating, and clinging once again. This cycle repeats endlessly within the cycle of suffering, samsara, that we are all trapped in. Only suffering arises, only suffering persists, and only suffering ceases. Beyond this, nothing truly arises or ceases. Only the conditioned states that appear, remain, and disintegrate constantly. The mind relies on these tools and becomes engrossed and attached to them. Thus, the cycle continues to revolve endlessly without an end. This is the nature of a mind lacking wisdom knowledge. It does not understand that these states of suffering or mental fabrications that the mind has created and relies upon are non-self, anatta. They have no real inherent existence. The mind has never been trained to go against the stream, to awaken to its true nature. Once the mind has been possessed by mental formations and fabrications, the cycle of worldly beings bound by ignorance continues endlessly, without conclusion. Until the fully enlightened Buddha came to find a way to transcend this cycle of suffering, through great difficulty in discovering the cause of suffering and in breaking free from the power of ignorance. When the Buddha attained enlightenment, he shared this knowledge with us so that we might understand and no longer rely on fabrications, having realized that these fabrications are anatta, non-self. He strived to point us towards awakening within because the avidya, ignorance, is the root cause of unawareness. A mind filled with ignorance becomes the condition for fabrications. It depends on mental formations, relying on fabrications, without realizing it. No one ever taught it to awaken from within. Instead, it flows outward, assigning value to external things, becoming attached to them. It creates and reveres material objects, bows and worships them, seeking refuge in external things. People become attached to their bodies, considering their physical forms and material possessions as their own. They revere trees as refuges, worship cars, deities, and spirits as places of refuge. As it was in ancient times, so it is today. The delusions of the past remain the same now, still worshipping and venerating external things, seeking refuge in the external, chanting, pleading, performing various rituals. The mind conditioned by ignorance, avidya, always flows outward, carried along by mental formations due to not knowing. It flows into thoughts, flows into memories, flows into emotions. Yet everything is merely an object of awareness, phenomena that contact the mind to be known. The natural state of our mind is pure consciousness, the original element, the deathless element. It neither arises nor ceases. Our mind has never truly been born. It is the deathless element. It is neither dark nor bright, neither large nor small, takes up no space, yet permeates all things. It is an extremely pure and clear element. We already possess this pure element. It is the life force element itself. Just observe. When consciousness leaves the body, doesn't the body become like a log of wood, simply waiting to decay? In summary, a simple question: is this body truly ours? Let's allow ourselves to go against the stream, to trace back to our origin, so that we may no longer cling to anything. Wouldn't that be better? The Buddha taught that the five aggregates, khandhas, are non-self, anatta. They have no inherent self. They are not us, nor do they belong to us. The five aggregates are simply natural phenomena. When we understand that the five aggregates are not us and do not belong to us, shouldn't we humbly follow and develop understanding according to this teaching? The Buddha taught that feelings, whether pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, do not have any inherent self. Do we perceive them as having a self? Does sickness or pain have a self? Do feelings of happiness, suffering, or neutrality have a self? If they have no inherent self, then why do we cling to them? Why do we carry them, hold on to them, and make them ours? The Buddha taught that the five aggregates, khandhas, are anatta, non-self, and all phenomena are also anatta. We simply need to humble ourselves and accept what the Buddha taught to see that there is nothing that truly possesses a self, nothing that is us, ours, or my. When the mind no longer clings to the five aggregates and ceases to attach to anything, not even to knowledge or understanding, it transcends the feeling of being, an individual, or a self. There is no sense of comprehension or identity left. That is the mind in its pure state. This nature already exists, complete and whole. It is not something created or made to exist. Our mind cannot be made pure by anyone, for it was never impure and never became pure. It is an essence that is inherently pure, beyond conventional reality. Yet we continue to engage in and play with conventions. Form has no self, feeling has no self, perception has no self, and mental formations have no self. Yet today, we are still caught up in these perceptions and mental formations. We argue and fight because of our perceptions, even though they have no inherent self. Mental formations, like thoughts and feelings, are not truly us, but we still cling to them. For example, when we're at home, we start to think, "What am I going to do about my debts? I'm so stressed." The thought arises, "What should I do? How can I pay off my debts?" And immediately we feel anxiety, stress, suffering. What happens next? We continue to think, to stress, and we get caught in a cycle of worry, unable to find a way out. This is the cycle of mental formations, the cycle of suffering that never ends, and we don't know how to escape it. We often try to release stress by seeking external outlets, praying, bowing, pleading, making offerings, consulting fortune tellers, or checking auspicious times. Is that true refuge? We remain outside ourselves, engaging with things that are all external. Can we recognize this simple truth? Everything in this world is external, and this consciousness, this knower within us, the mind itself is the element of knowing, a pure natural state. Every time there is contact, it transforms into an awareness, a natural state of knowing by itself. But mental formations interfere, fabricating and claiming the mind as me, as the one who perceives. This leads to the belief that I am the one hearing this sound right now. In reality, the sound that contacts the mind is not inherently sound, but merely something that comes into contact with the mind. The mind is aware of this contact now. So, where is the self in this? A simple question. No need to use the brain. No need to think. Let the mind answer. Dhamma is not about thinking. Some people think, right now I'm hearing with my ears, I'm the one hearing right now. This is just a thought. Do you realize? You don't know and will never know through thinking. If you truly understood, you would feel completely unburdened. When we see that all of this is just a world of mental fabrications, Dhamma is manifesting right here, right now, in this very moment, in the present. Some people say, enlightenment is impossible now. It was only possible during the Buddha's time. These days, enlightenment is no longer possible. But Dhamma is timeless, akaliko. It is not bound by time. Worldly people often make excuses, saying they cannot understand the truth because they have not truly grasped its essence. When wisdom fails, they lose interest in the Dhamma. Such people go on to teach others, claiming that the realization of truth or enlightenment is unattainable, or saying that it must look a certain way, involve certain signs, or be reached in a specific manner. They act as if they know all about enlightenment, yet have never experienced that state where all doubts vanish entirely. Do you know what it means when we say tears fall and all doubt disappears? It means one has seen clear insight, seeing that there is no self, no individual entity at all. There is no self or ego. This understanding fills the heart completely. It's as if there's nobody speaking, and what is present is beyond mere sound. It's a clarity that reveals itself so plainly, with no trace of me or mine. Nothing belongs to anyone. Everything is simply pure, and with this purity, there is only pure awareness, and it brings ultimate peace. Those who have understood the truth can speak from the heart, without a single doubt, driven by a desire to share the pure truth that is already within us all. This truth is our own mind, which is inherently pure. All we need to do is not cling to anything, not even to this knowledge and understanding itself. Don't attach to the voice speaking or thinking in your mind. Don't cling to emotions or mental images. These things have no self-nature. Don't even attach to the act of awareness itself. When sound contacts your senses, don't grasp at the idea, I am hearing. When experiencing smells, physical sensations, or sights, don't cling to the notion that there is a self doing the experiencing. Simply know that this is nature performing its functions. Body, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness are all just carrying out their natural roles. There is nothing that is truly me or mine. When we truly let go of all attachments, not by trying to force ourselves to let go, but by seeing and knowing from within, this is called mindfulness, satipatthana. The reason we hold on to things is due to ignorance, an inner lack of knowing. When we lack true understanding, we rely on mental fabrications, on thoughts and conceptualizations, from the moment we wake until we sleep, constantly thinking without awareness. Do you realize that the one who is speaking here isn't truly you? Some people find it hard to accept this simple fact. There's no self speaking, yet words are coming forth as if from somewhere. Who is it really? There is no need to cling to this notion, just don't be foolish enough to attach to it. Why not cling? Because one sees there is no self. The Buddha taught that ignorance drives the mind to fabricate experiences because, in its lack of wisdom, the mind relies on mental fabrications as tools. These mental fabrications depend on the body as their instrument, and the body in turn depends on external objects. This is how the mind gets projected outward. We forget that our true nature is pure essence. Instead, we identify ourselves as this or that, thinking we are human beings, seeing ourselves as good and others as bad, believing we are always right while others are wrong. When we see things this way, the self immediately appears. Whenever there is a self, we are trapped in the cycle of rebirth. Whether it's thinking, I am good, I am skilled, I am very meritorious, or I am an excellent practitioner of Dharma. All these keep us bound to the cycle of existence. The Buddha never taught us to seek rebirth or to remain in the cycle of samsara. He dedicated himself to teaching us the way out of the cycle of suffering, the endless cycle of mental fabrications. Yet beings prefer to engage in fabrications, showing off knowledge, insisting on what is right or wrong. But what does right or wrong truly mean? Are we aware that we are simply caught in mental fabrications? If we realize we're fabricating, then let go. Don't engage or play with it. Don't play with them, whether they seem right or wrong. Look at your own heart. There's no need to look at others. Just observe your own heart and see how it's constantly creating mental formations. Everything is inherently pure essence, not being anything in particular. This pure essence means it's not anything at all. There's no language that can define it, no meaning to attach to it, and no need to identify it as anything. Some people ask, then does this mean we don't understand anything? Well, aren't we communicating right now? This questioning is the nature of those who haven't yet realized. They think and doubt. Remember this simple guidance. Question your own heart. Focus on yourself first. Achieve your own enlightenment and clear understanding. For those who still have doubts, even momentary ones, observe your own mind. Stay awakened within, as this directly eliminates ignorance. Ignorance, or not knowing, can be overcome by simply knowing. The Buddha taught us to know things as they truly are. Suffering should be known and understood because suffering is a mental formation. It's something fabricated and cannot endure. When ignorance holds our hearts, we rely on suffering and mental formations. When we awaken inwardly and see suffering, see the thoughts and emotions that are fabricated, don't engage with them, cling to them, or control them. Let thoughts and emotions fulfill their function. Our role is simply to know naturally, know as it arises and let it go. Recognize that this natural knowing is happening on its own. See that the nature of all fabrications is that they create themselves. Recognize that nature is doing its own work. Our role is simply to know this truth, that these fabrications of nature are not us. Never cling to these natural fabrications as self. Don't grasp or claim them as mine, because that leads to becoming. When the mind grasps, it arises, it suffers, and it cannot escape suffering, for all that appears is suffering. All fabrications appear, remain briefly, and then dissolve, constantly arising and passing away. Understand that fabrications only appear, persist, and fade on their own. When one reaches the ultimate realization and encounters the truth of anatta, non-self, it becomes clear that it truly isn't anything at all. It does not exist. It is not anything, and it's unrelated to anything. There is only pure, unchanging presence. All natural phenomena exist just as they are. Don't ask what they are, for they are nothing in particular. There is no separation or division. Everything is of the same essence. There is only pure equality. Everyone can reach this ultimate truth in this very life. The key is practicing correctly. Stay awakened within. Don't let the mind wander outward. Don't get swept away by thoughts and emotions. Don't assign value to anything. Don't try to possess or control. Our only duty is to be aware within. Let thoughts, emotions, and mental formations do their work. We simply observe that nature is functioning by itself. Everything is already complete in its natural state. Your only role is to know, to be aware within. Let thoughts, emotions, and fabrications do their own work. Our role is simply to recognize that this nature is working on its own. The hands move on their own. The legs walk on their own. Hunger arises and passes on its own. Fullness comes on its own. Stomach aches, headaches. All of these occur naturally by themselves. Words are spoken on their own. Thoughts, emotions, and awareness all happen by themselves. Everything operates on its own. Your only role is to quietly observe nature, to be inwardly aware, seeing that it all knows and functions by itself. As we hear a sound right now, it hears itself, and it even understands the language automatically. Our task is simply to know nature. When there is comfort, know that it feels comfortable on its own. When there is suffering, know that it suffers on its own. Nature functions in this way. When there is contact, there are mental formations. It's like throwing a stone into water, ripples naturally form. This is the way of nature. Where there is mind, there are mental formations. When something contacts the mind, it ripples and creates formations. This is the mind's natural activity. If the mind is like water, mental formations are like the ripples on its surface. These ripples have no real existence. They are merely movements of the water. They have no true self-essence. Try to grab a ripple and you'll only find water. You can never catch the ripple itself. In the same way, mental formations, thoughts, feelings, emotions have no real existence. There is only the mind, which is a pure and complete essence. Mental formations arise and create concepts of good and bad, right and wrong, male and female, high and low, heaven and hell, dark and light, black and white, pairs of opposites. Thought assigns value to everything, but the mind itself is truly nothing at all. It isn't anything. It contains no concepts of merit or sin, good or evil, skillful or unskillful, high or low, black or white, arising or ceasing. The mind is purely, immaculately free, an immortal essence which could be called the element of nirvana or the element of emptiness. In truth, it has no name because it is supremely pure. The term pure essence fits perfectly, for it fills the heart of anyone who truly understands. It fills the heart with the knowing that this mind neither arises nor ceases. It is always present, ready at any moment, with no need for focus or effort. When troubles arise, some people think they must enter meditation or find calm. This is foolish and creates instant attachment. Whatever we do, especially if we were to leave this world, if we try to achieve something specific in that moment, attachment arises immediately. We must realize the truth before leaving this world. The ultimate truth is always with us, but we fail to grasp its fundamental principle. The principle is simple. Ignorance is the root of everything, but ignorance has no real existence. It's merely the mind's state of not knowing. Simply know, that's all. When there is continual automatic inner awareness, the mind begins to see mental formations as non-self, and that's it. The mind naturally reverts to its pure essence. In this state, there's a profound lightness, openness, and ease, with nothing left to hold on to and no sense of gain or loss. There is simply pure presence, free from all attachment. To reach the ultimate truth is to gain absolutely nothing, to become nothing, and to have nothing left. It's all about losing the sense of self, losing the notion of me, losing all attachments. Losing rays, pleasure, pain, losing it all, losing ignorance, losing delusion, losing all clinging until today we have nothing left to lose. It's all gone. There isn't even a feeling of being human anymore, and there's no desire to become anything either. We are nothing, having lost everything. This state is beautiful. Stay awake within and witness this truth. Let's not foolishly allow the mind to wander outside. Don't waste time gossiping, criticizing, showing off, or judging others. Never let the mind be drawn outward. To avoid sending the mind outward means not getting involved in thoughts or emotions. Our only role is to stay aware within. In that moment of inner awareness, ignorance dissolves right there. Ignorance is simply not knowing, and as soon as we know, ignorance fades. What do we know? We know the mental formations, the thoughts and fabrications. When it thinks, we know it. Let it come and let it go. Stay aware within lightly and comfortably, without focusing, straining, or wanting anything from it. Know without clinging, without identifying as me. Just know that this knowing is not us or ours. Right now, as you hear my voice, see who is hearing it. Notice how it is simply aware of the sound. That's the mind. It knows by itself as a knowing element, completely on its own. Don't ever mistake it as me or mine. Just recognize that it knows on its own. Those with wisdom who grasp the core principle can easily reach ultimate truth. Those without wisdom must rely on physical practices, going to different places, walking meditation, sitting meditation, carrying burdens and attachments. But those with deep wisdom achieve completion through inner knowing alone. Once they grasp the principle, their understanding is complete. Taking just a moment. Stay awakened within. The wise ones realize truth directly through understanding, while others depend on external practices. When you truly grasp the essence, enlightenment happens naturally and swiftly. Simply maintain inner awareness. Awakening within allows one to reach the ultimate truth in this very life. Remember this well. Simply be aware inwardly. Whatever thoughts arise, know them. See the voice that speaks in the mind. When a voice appears, when meaning arises, see it immediately. Just know and let go. Observe and understand it. Listen to these teachings frequently, as wisdom becomes complete when we listen to the core truths of Dhamma, letting the mind incline and reflect deeply. When one reaches the highest truth, tears may fall in awe. There's an overwhelming sense of openness and release, with nothing left. No knower, no known, only pure essence filling the heart. Then you'll truly know what it means not to be born again. Some ask, how do we know we've reached ultimate truth? I ask back, how do you know when you're full after eating? When reaching ultimate truth, all doubt vanishes. You know for yourself, you know with your whole heart, there's no more rebirth. Nothing more needs to be done. The task is complete. If one still feels the need to maintain the mind, then it's not yet complete. True completion is beyond all maintenance and care. There's no fear. One sees clearly that the mind has never been born. This purity is profound. No self, no substance, nothing at all. As I speak to you now, do you notice yourself thinking along with it? This is engaging with thought. Don't cling to it. Just be aware. I use human language to communicate so that people can understand, but don't attach to this language. It has no self to hold on to. Some may already be clinging and thinking, do you realize you're thinking right now? If you can see that, prepare for tears of realization, see it clearly, recognize you're playing with fabrications. Ignorance has dominated the heart since birth and persists continuously. The mind has never truly known, walking, eating, sitting, chanting, studying, reading, all while unaware. Ignorance is the cause that drives mental fabrications, keeping thoughts active. When you listen to me, you might wonder, is this true? How can this be? Realize you're thinking now. Don't play with thoughts. This is simple Dhamma. Keep listening. BBE like an empty glass without water or like an earthworm without a brain. Simply be aware. The mind merely perceives and feels, knowing within. Never use thought to try to understand this teaching. This is crucial because when you do, ignorance, not knowing, is actively playing with mental fabrications. The realization of ultimate truth is not about memorization or recitation, nor is it about using thought to fabricate an understanding. It must reach deep into the heart. Listen repeatedly until this understanding is embedded in the mind, until the mind awakens. When the mind truly awakens and sees thought, even just once, tears may fall, and there is an immense release. If you can see that thought itself creates every story, you'll understand. Look at a tree. Who says it's a tree? The inner voice speaks. Thought whispers, isn't it? The tree never says it's a tree. Look. If anyone can see that it's not really a tree, that's where thought is absent. There is no language there at all. Observe if someone can see it without calling it a tree, then in that moment, thought is absent. There is no language, no label at all. This language assigns meaning to things, calling it a tree, just as we label this body as a body. Thought says so, and there's a sense of ownership over the body. But if you see that it is not truly a body, you'll realize that it isn't anything at all. It's merely something observed, with no observer behind it. It is purely an essence, not something that truly is anything. Yet, because of ignorance, as soon as the eyes see a form, as soon as these objects of perception impact the mind, value is instantly assigned. This is our body. We are human. We have a name and surname. Even the concept of a specific time and date, like March 30th, where did it originate? Looking deeply within reveals it arises from mental formations, thoughts and fabrications, constantly creating concepts and labels. The very idea of body, my body, or March 30th itself is just another fabrication of the mind. No one is born wise. We all start from ignorance, not knowing. Just stay awakened within. Observe your thoughts continuously while listening to this teaching. Never play with thoughts. Just keep awakening inwardly, continuously observing your thoughts and listening to this teaching. Avoid engaging with thoughts completely. Some ask, "Teacher, I feel there's still something remaining. There's still a self here." I ask back, "Do you know that you're thinking right now?" Become aware within. Go deep. Keep knowing within. If even a small voice arises, notice that spot. Observe it clearly. That's your answer. Look closely. That's where the mind is playing with thought. Don't foolishly step out to engage with thoughts. Stay aware within. Know within. Learn the nature within. That's where wisdom and all understanding reside. We will understand every facet of truth. The ultimate truth is within. Keep knowing inwardly, and it will be profoundly wondrous. If there is nothing, then know that very nothingness. Dwell in that nothingness. That is the true dwelling place, that is our real home. Know everything within as all things, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness are constantly doing their work, constantly in contact. Stay with inner knowing, observing how all elements of experience arise and pass. The truth reveals itself through direct inner awareness, not through external seeking. The pure essence no longer clings out of ignorance. It simply knows, with wisdom fully present. It has surpassed the stages of great mindfulness and profound wisdom. Everything becomes automatic. When it reaches this point, awareness is constant, automatic, never lapsing for a moment. It knows every moment within, continuously. I must teach gradually, not too much at once, as it can be overwhelming. So I guide step by step to help grasp the core principle. Simply know within. That's the essence. You can know within at all times because thoughts are constant from waking until sleep. Is there ever a moment without thinking? Wake up, already thinking. What time is it? Oh no, it's late. Bad day. Overslept. Walk to bathroom. See your face in the mirror. Oh, why so many wrinkles? See? Thinking again. After finishing the shower, thoughts arise again. What should I wear today? Is this outfit okay? Then maybe, I hope I don't forget anything before I leave. Notice how the mind is constantly active, thinking one thing after another, every step of the way. It thinks every second, every moment. This is why we can practice awareness continuously, because thoughts are always present, providing constant opportunities to observe their nature. This continuous thinking provides us with endless chances to observe. By being aware of these thoughts as they arise, we practice staying present within, seeing the nature of the mind at work. By seeing how thoughts run continuously throughout the day, we can understand their empty nature and maintain awareness of the knowing mind that watches them arise and pass. The truth is constantly being revealed to the mind, showing the nature of anatta, non-self, all the time. Simply know it, and if you truly know, that's the end. There's nothing more. It is timeless, akaliko, beyond time. It reveals the truth right before your eyes, in every moment. This truth has been presenting the Dhamma for the mind to know since the beginning, but we haven't recognized it ourselves. The Buddha only pointed the way, saying, "Be aware within, know it inwardly." The root cause, the origin of suffering, lies within. Look within and you'll see it. Seeking refuge externally will not lead to the truth. The true refuge, the cause of suffering, is all within. All things arise from causes, and the fundamental cause is ignorance. So, just know. Be aware of the thoughts arising. Simply know them. Is there a true self in thought? The words I'm speaking now, do they have a self? Can this voice truly be grasped? As you're thinking right now, do you recognize it? If you're aware that you're thinking in this moment, that's the present. Every time we're aware, that's the present. There's no need to seek Dhamma here or there. Is the present found in specific places? Do you need to go to a temple to find it? Does the present exist in walking slowly or sitting still? Is it tied to the body? Awakening and freedom from suffering is about this very moment, right here, right now. It's showing non-self, anatta, right here, right now. Some seek teachers, seek ultimate truth, seek liberation from external sources, but have you ever searched for your own mind? Have you found it yet? The mind that is the pure essence. Is it outside? Is it with this or that teacher? Don't cling to the teacher or to me in any way. Don't even cling to this voice. Listen to understand. Enlightenment, liberation from suffering, and reaching the highest truth all rest within the mind. The mind is a pure essence, but because it doesn't truly know, it relies on mental fabrications. The Buddha taught that suffering should be fully understood because mental fabrications are inherently dukkha, the truth of suffering. Whether fabrications are skillful or unskillful, they are all states of suffering. They are unstable, subject to change, and cannot endure. Every peaceful or concentrated state is a fabrication that cannot be sustained. Do you see this? Do you understand? But why not observe the nature that is always present? Everything is contained within this awareness. Morality, sila, is here within. If we are aware within, that's true morality because it doesn't project outward or flow with mental fabrications. Mindfulness, sati, is simply this internal awareness. Seeing thoughts as they are, that is mindfulness, and it's constant. When there is inner awareness, it naturally becomes stable concentration, samadhi, and the mind is awakened and present. So, what are you still seeking? The Buddha didn't discover something new, he simply awakened to a natural truth that has always existed. In the past, I too practiced by focusing on the body, but when I finally saw the truth, I thought, how foolish I've been. Who else could be as blind as I was? Tears flowed as I bowed to the Buddha, only then truly understanding. But once that understanding arose, it no longer mattered that I understood. There was no sense of self-achievement, only the recognition that there is nothing left, only loss. I lost the sense of me and mine. Everything dissolved, leaving only the core truth of the teachings to pass on. This language I use is just conventional, a tool for understanding. Know that it's merely a construct. Thoughts and emotions, our role is simply to observe them, let them work on their own. See it. Let it do its work. It's not us, and it has no self. Just observe directly and let things function naturally. When we recognize there is no self in any of it, no entity to grasp, that's true seeing. Know deeply within, see if the voice has any shape or substance. Does an image, an emotion, truly have a self? When we look inward, we find only pure essence, nothing else. It is purely empty, the essence of emptiness. We'll discover the mind's inherent purity that's already there. There's no need to seek it elsewhere. No need to create it or cultivate anything special. Simply knowing within, awakening within, reveals everything. We reach the ultimate truth in this very life, because the mind doesn't cling to fabrications. It separates itself from fabrications, seeing them as non-self, anatta. With this insight, tears will flow for those with wisdom truly awakening within. Don't engage with thoughts or fabrications, just be aware. Know that awareness is happening within. If any inner voice arises, simply observe it and let it be. Don't play with it. In doing so, we free ourselves from suffering permanently. This is the true path to liberation. This is the essence of Dhamma. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.